The snow fell silently, blanketing the old pine forest in a soft hush, as if the world had paused to listen. The sun had dipped below the horizon hours ago, and the wind carried a chill sharp enough to bite through even the thickest coat. But Ranger Eli Hayes didn't have a coat. He didn't even have the use of his arms. He was tied to a tree. His wrists had been chafed raw from struggling against the rope, and the cold had turned his fingers numb. His ranger uniform was soaked from the snow, and blood had dried on his temple where one of the poachers had struck him. They'd ambushed him while he was patrolling the outskirts of Pine Creek National Park, furious he'd found their illegal wolf traps. "You think you can stop us?" one had snarled before they left him there, as bait. "Let's see how your precious wolves feel about a human caught in their woods." That was 4 hours ago. Maybe 5. The forest had grown darker, quieter. And then, he heard them. The low, deliberate crunch of paws in snow. The almost imperceptible huff of breath. Shapes moving between the trees, slow and steady. Wolves. Eli's heart pounded. Not out of fear, he knew the wolves here, had studied them, respected them. But this wasn't a research encounter. He was helpless. And they were wild. A large gray wolf emerged into the moonlight first. Broad shoulders. Calm eyes. The alpha. Eli recognized him immediately, Ghost, the park's most elusive legend. Behind him, others followed, cautious but curious. They circled him. And then something strange happened. Ghost stepped forward. Not with menace, not with hunger, but with quiet intent. He sniffed the air, then approached Eli directly. The ranger stayed still, barely breathing. The wolf's nose touched his boot, then moved to the ropes. Ghost growled, not at Eli, but at the rope. And then, without warning, he began to gnaw. Eli blinked in disbelief. The other wolves watched, alert but relaxed. Ghost's teeth worked the thick cord slowly, deliberately. Minutes passed. Then, the rope gave way, and Eli's arms dropped to his sides. Freedom. He sank to the ground, gasping, shivering, overwhelmed by the surreal reality. But the wolves didn't leave. Ghost sat beside him, pressing his warm flank against Eli's side. One of the younger wolves, a tawny female, stepped forward and licked the blood from his temple gently. Eli felt tears sting his frozen cheeks. This was no attack. This was protection. Maybe they understood the danger he was in. Maybe they remembered that he was the one who had once freed their pups from a steel trap years ago, deep in the valley. Maybe they simply knew, the way animals sometimes do, that Eli wasn't their enemy. He was one of the few who had fought for them, not against them. As the cold threatened to take him again, Eli leaned into their warmth. For the first time that night, he closed his eyes, not in fear, but in trust. When he awoke, it was to the sound of snowmobiles and shouting. Ranger Hayes. He opened his eyes. The wolves were gone. The search team rushed toward him, led by Clara, a fellow ranger who'd refused to stop looking after he missed check-in. They wrapped him in blankets, checked his pulse, radioed for an ambulance. He told them everything, well, almost everything. When he mentioned the wolves, there were polite nods, skeptical glances. No one truly believed him. Except for Clara. She smiled gently and whispered, "They remembered you, didn't they?" Eli nodded. "They saved my life." A week later, back at the ranger station, he found a small paw print pressed into the snow just outside his cabin. Ghosts. Eli never saw the wolves up close again. But he no longer needed to. Because that night changed everything. Poachers were caught, and public support for protecting the Pine Creek wolves surged. People who had once feared them began to ask questions, donate, volunteer. Kids visited the park, eyes wide, hoping for a glimpse of the mysterious, guardian wolves. And as for Eli, he became something of a legend himself. Not just the ranger who'd survived the wild, but the one who proved something deeper. That kindness, even unspoken and long forgotten, has a way of returning, often when we need it most. That the wild watches, and sometimes, it remembers who you are.